So Unit 2, Digital Design and Issues, Part 3. So the first point in this lecture is supply and ground bounds. So the output voltage of an IC is with respect to the ground of the chip. Hence, in a system, the tiny wire connection between the chip and the lead frame of the package contribute a small amount of inductance in the circuit. So, what is actually the ground bounds? The ground bounds is usually seen on high density VLSI where insufficient precautions have been taken to supply a logic gate with sufficiently low resistance connection or sufficiently high capacitance to the ground. So, in this phenomenon, when the gate is turned on, enough current flows through the emitter collector circuit and the silicon in the intermediate vicinity of the emitter is pulled high, sometimes by several volts, thus raising the local ground as perceived by the transistor. So, to a value significantly above the true value. Relative to this local ground, the base voltage can go negative, thus shutting off the transistor. As the excess local charge dissipates, the transistor turns back on, possibly causing a repeat of the phenomenon, sometimes up to a half dozen bounds. So when the V out goes low, a spike of the current flow through this inductance and it creates a voltage spike. And a device connected to the output of the circuit indicates a logical zero. This is called as ground bounds. VDD and ground pins of the package are not at VDD and ground. VDD and ground are established and regulated at the power supply. Therefore, both resistive component and an inductive component between the package pin and the power supply ground are exist. So ground bounds is one of the leading causes of or metastable gates in the model digital circuit design. This happens because the ground bounds put the input of the flip-flop effectively at voltage level that is neither a 1 or 0 at clock time or causes towards effect in the clock itself. A similar phenomenon may be seen on the collector side called VCC sag, where VCC is pulled unnaturally low. As a whole, ground bounds is a major issue in the nanometer range technologies in VLSI. So the ground bounds may be reduced by placing 10 to 30 ohm resistor in series to limit the ground flow during the gate switch. The designer uses heavy copper planes that make them as full as possible with as few cuts and holes as possible. In fact, this inductance in many high-speed circuit is just too large to tolerate. So bypass capacitors are used in VLSI integrated circuit. Purpose of bypass capacitor is to implement that looks like a regulated VDD and ground right at the package for a short time until the inductance of the plane is overcome. So the transient current, when the logic device changes, the state will have to flow to and from the power supply. Then they simply flow to and from the capacitor. As the age rate and drive capability increase in the advanced logic families, the effect of intrinsic electrical characteristics become more pronounced. One of these intrinsic electrical characteristics is inductance found in all lead frame material. So in electronic engineering, the ground bounds is the phenomenon which is associated with transistor switching where the gate voltage can appear to be less than the local ground potential, causing the unstable operation of logic gate. So there are three inductors. One inductor in the ground bound circuit model. One inductor represent the intrinsic inductance in the ground lead of the package. Then second inductor represent the intrinsic inductance in the power lead of the package, and third inductor represent the intrinsic inductance in the output lead of the package. Also there are one resistor which represent the output impedance of the device output, and capacitor and load resistor represent the standard test load on the output of the device. Here output slew rate is dependent upon the characteristic of output transistor, and inductor we can say L1 and L3 and CL, that is the load capacitance. So there are many second and third order effects which need to be considered for complete theoretical analysis. So by considering these effects, it would lead to highly complex second and third order differential equations which are difficult to solve. So purpose of this application is to develop a fundamental understanding of the ground bounds and to provide a useful set of design guidelines. So we will see in order to change the output from high to low, current must flow to discharge the load capacitance. To get or to change the output from high to low, current must flow to discharge the load capacitance, and this current as it changes causes a voltage to be generated across the inductance in the circuit. So formula V is equal to L into delta I by delta T. This induced voltage create what is known as a ground bounce because the inductor is between the external system ground and the internal device ground. The induced voltage causes the internal ground to be at different potential than the external ground, and this shift in potential causes the device input and output to behave differently than expected because they are reference to the internal device ground, while the device which are either driving into the input or being driven by the output are reference to the external system ground. External to the device, the ground bounce causes input threshold to the shift and output level to change, and this situation is very similar to the large system where voltages can develop across the expansive ground network. Now there are some other causes of ground bounce also. Ground bounce generated during high to low transition, and it is estimated the ground bounce is also generated during low to high transition. This ground bounce is created by the large gate capacitance associated with the output transistor on the DAC. Because these gate capacitance are larger than the gate capacitance of earlier stage transistor, so the more current is generated when they switch. The output buffer stages of CMOS devices are inverter, so their inputs are switching high to low when their outputs are switching low to high. So these are the currents associated with the switching these inputs to the output transistor that generate a round bounce when output switch low to high. This low to high ground bounce has much smaller amplitude and it does not present the same concern. So VDD bounce is the inverse of ground bounce. There is an intrinsic inductance in the VDD which lead as well as the ground lead. The internal VDD potential will collapse towards a ground at the beginning of low to high transition and then bounce above the external VDD potential at the end of transition. So VDD bounce, or we can say droop, is the voltage drop across the package. Inductance to VDD is caused by charging the load capacitances, that is CL, and VDD bounce is less of concern than a ground bounce because TTL logic, transistor logic level input have a greater high noise immunity. So VDD bounce is generated during high to low transition. For the same reason, ground bounce is generated during low to high transition. The VDD bounce is the application because its effect parallel those of the ground bounce, and the system problems of VDD bounce are typically of less concern than the ground bounce. This is because the TTL input have a greater input high noise margin that input low noise margin. For CMOS driving TTL, the input high noise margin approaches 3.5 volt, and for CMOS driving CMOS, the input high noise margin approaches 2.5 volt. In either case, the input high noise margin is 3 to 5 times greater than any expected VDD bounce. So this is all about the supply and ground bounce. Next point is power distribution technique. So power distribution comes under the floor planning. While distributing the power on the chip, there are two approaches. One is proper sizing of wires to ensure that they can deliver the required power without being destroyed. And second one is we need to design a global power distribution network which runs both VDD and VSS entirely in metal. So power distribution has power distribution has two problems, that are sizing wire and power distribution network. As can be seen from sorry. The branch carry the current in all branches. If the logic gates use a few standard transistor sizes, computing a power in a line is challenging. In order to design a large integrated circuit, a simple rules are chosen for a power supply width. Hence, a metal migration is a problem in power supply distribution. To reduce the power supply noise, the capacitors across the power supply pins are used in a printed circuit board design. Further, in large size integrated circuit, the decoupling capacitors are used in the semiconductor chips. Therefore, in microprocessor, the integrated circuit to add decoupling capacitance, a separate chip is bonded on the top of the integrated circuit. So the power supply, that is VDD, is at the root, and the different logic gates are connected to the wings. The main requirement is that each branch must be wide enough to carry the current in all of its branches. If the logic gates use only a few transistor sizes, then computing the power line width is easy. If too much current is carried through a wire, then the wire quickly disintegrates. This is also called as a metal migration limit. A metal migration means under high current, the electron collision with a metal grain causes the metal to move. Also, mean time to failure for a metal wire is the time it takes for 50% of testing sites to fail. It is a function of current density. So a metal wire can handle 1.5 milliampere of current per micron of the wire width under the SCMOS rule. A width of the wire is measured perpendicular to the current flow. So 4.5 milliampere of current can be handled by a 3 micrometer wire. Generally 4.5 milliampere is enough current to supply a large number of logic gates. So in small design, the metal migration problem is not a major problem. But in case of large design, sizing power supply line is critical to ensure that the chip does not fail once it is installed. In case of large design, a metal migration is not only the problem, the large current may still cause a power supply noise. So the power supply noise is due to the IR drop in the power supply network. So we need to analyze the power network using a circuit simulation with high level models for major components to model their current requirement over a time. So decoupling capacitors across the power supply pins are traditionally used in PCB design to reduce a power supply noise. In large chips, Decoupling capacitors may be used on chip. For example, DEC Alpha microprocessor uses 250 nanofarad of on-chip capacitance to decouple the power supply. We can minimize the noise by modifying the sequential design of the machine. So this is all about the power distribution. Next is power optimization. So we know how to optimize the power consumption of an isolated logic gate. When designing a logic network, one way to reduce a power consumption is to capacitance driven by the gate. However, since the gate consumes almost no power, when When quiescent, the most effective way to reduce its power consumption is to make it change its output as few times possible. If there is no change in the output value of the gate is not required, the logic circuit to reduce the number of unnecessary changes to gate. If there is no change in the output value, then the gate is not required. The logic circuit to reduce the number of unnecessary changes to gate's output can be designed to eliminate the glitching. The method for power reduction which can be used. The glitch reduction may be used in sequential system. To stop the propagation of the glitches, sequential machines are incorporated with a resistor. In sequential timing, the optimization is considered as a retiming. So the flip-flop is connected after the logic with the high signal transition probabilities. For repeating the timing, extra level of resistors are added. Adding resistor are important when there are more glitch producing segments are present. However, the number of cycles required to compute the machine output should be compatible. The consumption power of the gate is reduced if its output changes a few times. So, we need to design the logic network to reduce the number of unnecessary changes to a gate's output. We can reduce the power consumption by eliminating the glitches in the CMOS logic. The glitch reduction is applied more effectively in sequential logic as compared to the combinational logic. So to stop the propagation of the glitches in sequential machine, we use a resistor independent of the logic function to be implemented. So the D flip-flop changes its output only for a positive edge trigger of the clock. Therefore, after positive edge of the clock, even though the D flip-flop has a glitch, it is not reflected at the output. So here diagram for the power optimization is shown with a D flip-flop. Even though the D flip-flop has a glitch, it is not reflected at the output. But adding resistor will change the number of cycles required to compute the output of machine, and also it must be compatible with rest of the system. The other way to reduce the power consumption is by proper state assignment. The one hot encoding require only 2 signal transitions per cycle, and these transitions are on the old state encoding require only 2 signal transitions per cycle. In multi-level logic network, glitches are more likely to occur. So in this, the signal arrive at the input of the gate at a different time. Therefore, the differences in arrival time at the gate input cause the glitch. Next is signal integrity issues. So, in recent days, the signal integrity is a critical issue to the VLSI designer. The signal integrity problems are related to the electromagnetic and are in terms of EMI and EMC. In digital system application, the signal is transmitted from one component to other in the form of logic high or low. At the input of receiver, the voltage above the reference value is taken as a logic high, whereas the voltage below the reference value is taken as a logic low. So it also depends on the waveform. Signal waveform distortions are having the various mechanisms and noise problem that are reflection noise, crosstalk noise, and power and ground noise. So timing is everything in high speed system. The signal timing depends on delay caused by the physical length that the signal must propagate. It also depends on the shape of the waveform when the threshold is reached. The signal waveform distortion can be caused by a different mechanism, but there are 3 mostly concerned noise problem. One is reflection noise. It means due to the impedance mismatch, stubs, wires, and other interconnect discontinuities. Next is crosstalk noise due to the electromagnetic coupling between the signal traces and wires. Power and ground noise. It is due to the parasitics of the power or ground delivery system during a driver's simultaneous switching output. It is sometimes called as ground bounce, delta 1 noise, or simultaneous switching noise. Besides these 3 kinds of the SI problem, there are other electromagnetic interference problems which may contribute to the signal waveform distortion. Now, where this SI problem arises, since the signal travels through all kinds of the interconnection inside a system, any electrical impact happening at the source end, along the path, or at the receiving end, it will have a great effect on the signal timing and quality. So the cheap packages printed circuit board, that is PCB, as well as the cable and connectors from so-called different levels of electronic packaging systems. In each of the level of packaging structure, there are typical interconnects such as metal traces, wires, and power or ground planes which form electrical path to conduct the signal. It is the packaging interconnection that ultimately influences the signal integrity of the system. So real-time and signal integrity. Due to the significant improvement of the chip fabrication technology, the silicon size is shrinking and the transistor channel length is reduced into a sub-micron range. as the speed of logic circuit increases. In a deep submicron technology, it is related with dV dt or dl by dt. Crosstalk and power and ground switching noise are existing. Since the system with a faster clock frequency has lower rise time, the signal integrity changes are increasing. Next is routing. So what is routing? Routing is to locate a set of wire in the routing space that connect all the nets in the netlist, and the capacities of channels, width of wire and wire crossing often need to be taken into consideration. So there are types of routing: global routing and detailed routing. In global there are again line and maze routing, and in detailed routing there are channel routing and switch box routing. So routing is one of the most fundamental step in the physical design flow, and it is typically a very complex optimization problem. Effective and efficient routing algorithms are essential to handle the changes arising from the fast growing scaling of IC integration. So, routers will keep evolving with emerging design challenges man, such as a nanometer effect, signal integrity and reliability, etc. Next is wiring parasitics. In CMOS process, the several metal layers are used in interconnect wiring. Although 3 or 4 interconnect layers were sufficient for the network with million or so FETs, the high density impact systems are designed. On-chip wiring is important to the circuit designer to make a chip operational. Consider a wire with a width W and distance D. The material layer with a height H and the parasitic element include resistance and capacitance. So all this is shown in this diagram with distance d, width. So the parasitic elements are introduced due to the wires, and a transistor into the circuit. The two main parasitic components are resistance and capacitance. The diffusion wire capacitance are introduced by p-n junction at the boundaries between the diffusion and underlying substrate, and these capacitances changes with the voltage across the junction, which varies with a circuit operation. So this is about the wiring parasitics. Here a diagram for the wiring parasitics shown. Thank you.